Welcome to another exciting edition of the Trading Bell. This week on the show, we are coming to you from Embakasi, the headquarters of Kenya Airways, the pride of Africa. Can the airline maintain the same tagline today? Are they still the pride of Africa, even as the airline continues to report losses? Well, we are here to find out what is the game plan for the airline, and I'll be speaking to Mr. Allan Kilavuka, the Managing Director and CEO of Kenya Airways. Is the airline headed in the right direction? We shall be finding out shortly. But before that, let's take a look at his profile. Allan Kilavuka is the Group Managing Director and CEO at Kenya Airways. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Nairobi and a postgraduate certificate in psychology from the University of Liverpool. He has trained at General Electric's world-class Croton Leadership Institute in the United States in New York in executive leadership, advanced management, and financial management. With over 23 years' experience in leadership and management and an extensive knowledge and experience in the Africa business environment, he has proven success in new organization setups, change management, financial planning, integrations, process improvement, and company compliance, as well as responsible strategic leadership. Thank you so much, Mr. Kilavuka, for joining us on the Trading Bell, and we are really delighted to have you on the show.
Thank you for coming, and welcome to Kenya Airways.
All right, let's get the ball rolling. And of course, the airline has been in some turbulence. Not only Kenya Airways, it's across the aviation sector globally. Some say this is the year of record losses for airlines. I just want to pick your mind. Is it the situation as well for our airline as a country?
We have seen some of the impacts of the COVID situation on the airline. A lot of it is financial impact, but of course there's a lot of people impact as well, customer impact, and it's been severe. It's been tough, and it's going to continue for a period of time. So, for example, if I give a few examples on let's start with our customers. So for our customers, because we cannot roll out the full schedule for several reasons. One is because of restricted access to some of our markets. In fact, like for example, Entebbe has just opened, as a good example. And then we cannot deploy all our assets because we simply don't have enough numbers. Then they don't have the convenience that they had before to fly where they would like to fly to. And even they need to gain a bit more confidence in terms of travel. So we are facing those two issues. On our employees, they have had to do with a much lower pay than they're used to. And they made severe sacrifices. A lot of them have not come to work because there's not enough work to go around. Some of them have had to unfortunately leave the company. And then on the company, in terms of financial impact, it's been severe. In terms of impact, so far, we estimate that, I have to convert it to shillings, we estimate that it's about, the impact is about 40 billion shillings from January to date, in terms of if you compare this year to last year. There are two things that I see. There is what we can do internally, and then what is needed from an external intervention perspective. So let me start with external. Externally, we will need to recapitalize this business. And everybody has said it before, and it is true, that the airline had problems even before COVID. I think that's not even a secret. It is a fact. And now what COVID has done has made it much, much worse, not just for this airline, but for the entire aviation industry. So the airline, therefore, needs to recapitalize. It needs more injection of funds from its shareholders, quite frankly. That's the best source of funds that we think we would have, the cheapest source of funds. And my personal estimate is that if we were to work well, we would need about $500 million of recapitalization of the business. That way, then we can restructure the balance sheet. That way we can use some of that for working capital and operations. And that way we can actually also talk to some of our suppliers, vendors, lessors, to also restructure some of the owings to them. It is important to note the importance of Kenya Airways as an organization to the country. Now, it's been said, and I agree, that it's a national asset. It plays a significant role in the economy. in terms of supporting tourism, supporting exports and imports that are critical, supporting skills and training, providing employment, creating a hub and being an ambassador for this country, a good ambassador for this country. So it plays quite a huge task, quite a huge role in terms of supporting Kenya and helping it to grow. I think it is also going to be important to help in the recovery process, because of course the economy has suffered significantly.
Sure.
Now, externally, that's what we need. Internally, we will need to be more efficient. Starting first of all on how we serve our customers, how we can respond faster, be more intimate to them, and respond specifically with products that will support them and help them. So I feel and believe that we can respond better that way. We can also improve our efficiencies in terms of our on-time departures. That way, of course, that is responding to our customers, because that's what they're demanding for.
Sure.
We can look for more value that we can give to customers for what they pay for their service. And above all, also look outside. Now, really, I've talked a lot about diversification. I truly believe that is a critical component of the future of Kenya Airways.
Okay.
Because we have for the longest time been focusing and relying on passenger as the main source of our revenue, which will continue for the longest time because we are an airline. But we now need to look further afield, really invest more in cargo. Cargo today is probably about 7 to 8% of our business. We would want to move that progressively over time so that it's about 20% of the business. And then look at other new avenues of investment. So we are working on a project of unmanned aircraft systems, which is drones. We're working hard to see how we can commercialize that operation using partners that will support us in that process. It is critical because we have the skill. We may not have the financing, but we have the skill.
And Mr. Kilavuka, of course, talk to us about post-COVID. Of course, right now we know that there's been travel restrictions have been lifted in some of the countries. Just paint for us a picture. How many countries are we currently flying to? Have we seen an upsurge in travel? By how much percent?
We fly to approximately 56 destinations, depending on how you categorize those destinations. And when we started with about 25, 26, and then 27 destinations, because of it was demand driven and also access to market, access to those specific markets. And then we have grown that progressively to 30, 33. We're going to open a few more, so it will probably go to 37 or so. We're going to open a few more, including Entebbe. We are gearing up for New York, which we hope to open on the 28th of October, all going well. Working with a few partners. We're going to increase, in some cases, we're going to increase some frequencies. Like, for example, today, China, we are flying once a week. We want to increase that to twice a week for two reasons. One is because there is sufficient demand for that. Secondly, we had only been given permission to fly once a week. Now we've been given a second frequency, so we want to increase that. So we are responding. Now, how does that look like? In some countries, in some markets, it's been good. Let's say it's been encouraging, because we still are not at the same level of 2019. But in places like London, London has always been a flagship destination for us, and it is proving to be a healthy destination for us. So the numbers there are good. They are over 50% of our cabin factor, almost all through. In fact, in some cases, it goes higher to 70% and so on. Places like Amsterdam, Paris, those have been challenging routes for us for two reasons. One is primarily because of the restrictions of access to those markets, because the residents of most African countries are not allowed into Europe at the moment, and because of the second wave, they're even increasing their restrictions of access to their markets. So those things have been quite challenging. So a few African destinations have also not been as good as we've always hoped for them. Dar es Salaam, as you know, we have just started after we were allowed back into that market, and it is proving actually to be quite a healthy destination. It's a very encouraging one. We are flying over 60% of our cabin factor, So we had said this is key for us, and that is why we were very keen for us to resolve the concerns that were there before.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in a nutshell, would you say business has picked up? Is it possible to quantify this compared to before the restrictions were lifted?
Yeah, so business, you see, every week is better than the previous week.
Okay.
And every day is better than the previous day. So let's categorize it into international and domestic. Overall, we are only flying 20% of our capacity. Okay, so it's difficult to measure because it's actually
it's not the optimum.
It's not optimum.
Yeah.
However, having said that, like I said, it is continuous improvement. Okay. So for example, even with 20% capacity for domestic routes, which is Mombasa and Kisumu, we are going to about 80% cabin factor, which is fantastic. But it's only 20%. But what that means is that people are getting more and more confident in terms of travel. So as they continue to travel more, we continue increasing capacity. So we are responding exactly to the demand. Internationally, overall, the cabin factor is about 45%, because there are good destinations and not so good destinations.
Yeah.
But again, even there, we're flying 20%. Now, if we project that to the end of the year, that is December, we will increase progressively our capacity, but we don't see ourselves going beyond 38% of our capacity. Again, strictly based on demand. I mean, if the demand demands for 45, 50%, of course we'll go to 45, because we have the aircraft, we have the pilots, we have the will to do that.
Of course, different quarters have maintained that aviation might take close to 2 to 3 years before things get back to normal.
Yeah.
On the flip side of this, the airline also, to be able to contain the costs, you ended up releasing some huge number of employees. We're talking about close to 600 employees. Yes. Just talk to us about this, because you did touch on you'll be increasing capacity depending on how things pan out. Yeah. Is there some hope for those employees perhaps who might have been let go because the business volumes were not that much? Are we likely to see something being worked around this?
Thank you, Abi. So the answer to your question is yes. What we have told our employees, we still consider them our employees, part of the KQ family, is that the moment we are able to see demand come up, the first people who we will consider back are the people who we let go. So absolutely correct. Yes, that is true. I do need to mention though that we still have excess redundant staff in terms of we have redundancies in our staff complement.
Okay.
And we have been talking specifically to the unions to agree on how we can deal with this situation, because we have close to 600 people who are excess. In fact, more than 600 people who are excess.
Wow. So
we are looking at how do we deal with this situation in a very humane way, because the truth is that we don't see demand for this extra capacity of people, but at the same time, are there other mechanisms that we can work together with our unions and employees that will reduce that number in terms of the impact of the number of sending those people home. And we're having discussions. They are difficult discussions, but we're having those discussions.
Sure. The nationalization agenda has been on for some time, and it's been going through the motions in Parliament. I did remember you were summoned some time back, and just walk us through how critical is this nationalization plan. There are, of course, divisions around this plan. Yes. Some say, how do we make KQ to handle all these other entities? And yet KQ is not profitable at the moment. There are quarters who believe that going this route could be the magic bullet that could turn around the airline and go into the territories of other airlines like Ethiopian Airlines. Just give us a clear explanation of why nationalization and why not.
All right. Okay. Okay. So Abdi, that's a very critical question, and there are as many opinions as there are people in this regard. And when you talk about nationalization, you're really talking about taxpayers' money. And so taxpayers have all the right to voice their concerns or their opinions and comments about this issue. So they are completely within their right to ask questions, to demand for answers and so on. Now I'll give you my perspective. My perspective, both as a leader of this airline and as a taxpayer, is this. First of all, is to acknowledge that Kenya Airways, as an airline, is critical to the economy of this country. Okay? Now, I know there's some people who say they don't think so, but I personally say it is critical. It is critical because our economy is driven by tourism and exports of horticulture, particularly horticulture, vegetables. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what Kenya Airways needs to do is to support the economy of this country, primarily by doing that. And then at the same time, because once you do that, you create access to markets for the tourism sector in Kenya, and then for the exporters. So all those things put together say to me, and should say to most Kenyans, that it is critical for this airline to be successful. Now the question therefore becomes, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I think the frustrations Kenyans have been airing is, Kenya Airways has been making losses for the longest time. There are many reasons, and I don't think we have enough time to go through those many reasons.
Sure.
Why? But one of them is how we are structured. When you talk about nationalization, the thinking behind nationalization was, if we want to be internationally competitive, because 85% of our business is international traffic, not local. Local is only 15%, if not even less. So international traffic is important, and therefore we need to be internationally competitive. And if you look at our major competitors, you find that they are structured in a manner that they have government support. First of all, they are government owned, and they have government support. And so that's the thinking, right? The airlines, particularly in this region, who are government owned, but do not have a structure around them, they don't have the ecosystem supporting them. By that I mean they don't have the airport and the other aviation assets that support the airline. You find that they struggle. Okay? But that does not exempt us, does not excuse us from looking inside and seeing how can we be more efficient, because you can nationalize and then continue being inefficient. That will not help. In fact, it will drain taxpayers' money.
Sure.
So we have to do two things at the same time. One, nationalize, and then behind this aviation sector reform, but more importantly, also look internally and see what are the things that we need to do differently to stem the losses, even if we're not, because in aviation, the margins are very, very thin. Okay? I mean, most airlines don't do more than 4% of margins. So even if we're not making profits, but at least let's not make losses. So we should at least break even to begin with, as we continuously improve, so that taxpayers can feel like it's good use for their funding. But also, taxpayers should not only look at that; they should also look at what other contributions Kenya Airways is making to the overall economy. So, having said that, the thinking behind nationalization was therefore that if you look at currently the setup, the setup is such that we have different shareholders within the company. KLM, KQ lenders, and so on. Now, for the airline to be consolidated, with other players, with the ecosystem, with the airport and other aviation players, then it will need to be national. It will need to be owned by the public. Okay, that's how the public will agree that it's cross-subsidized. Otherwise, then you'll have people sitting in Kenya Airways who are enjoying the benefits of subsidizing Kenya Airways, and they are not part of the taxpayer. So this company needs to be owned by the taxpayer, and then it is subsidized within the aviation sector reform program.
Okay.
And the last point I wanted to make, Abby, which is very critical, because I hear this argument that you have a loss-making airline and a profit-making airport, and then you're consolidating them. You're hurting one and not the other. So I would only say two things to this. So first of all, is airports the world over almost always make money. I mean, just their setup, they always almost make money. And actually their margins are much bigger than the airport, and than the airline.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how the setup is. That's how the business model works. So it is very rare for you to find airports, unless you find the small ones. But the big hubs will always make money. I mean, because they make money from all airlines that are flying in. And they don't have huge equipment like we do. Very expensive equipment, very expensive personnel managing the equipment. So airlines and airports will always make money, almost always make money, and their margins will be always bigger.
Yeah.
Secondly, if you look at specifically Kenya Airways and KA, we are 60% of their business, right? We contribute 60% of their revenue. So one would argue that we are a significant contributor to their profits, okay? And that is why it is important for us to work in tandem, collaboratively, which we are. So really just to make sure that we are consolidating this and making sure that all the synergies that can be harvested between these two organizations are optimized, so that, you know, for the greater good of aviation sector in Kenya.
All right. For the Mama Mboga out there, how would you demonstrate this to them? Especially, everyone out there understands really KQ is trying to get back on its feet. And so what will change really? How much liquidity will be injected if the merger goes through?
Mama Mboga will probably, especially for the farmers, you know, who do horticulture, who do exports, they want the price of the exports, the freight charges, to be lower. What we're looking to do is, by making this airline efficient, is to reduce those charges, okay, so that they pay less for their exports. Same thing with passengers. The more you become efficient in terms of your cost efficiencies, the more you identify synergies, then you can charge less, okay? The other thing is, we also need to be efficient. So again, if we're working in harmony with the airport in terms of making sure that the infrastructure of the airport is good, because it's not only about Kenya Airways. And Kenya Airways needs to improve our delivery to our customers, and so does KAA, all right, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, so that you feel comfortable. When you come to the airport, you are proud of the airport, and you know, when it comes to departures, you're departing on time, you're landing comfortably, you're happy about, you know, your restrooms, you're happy when it comes to the launches, you're happy, you know, when you walk around and feel proud, you can, you know, you feel proud of your airport.
Yeah.
So all those things are envisaged in this aviation sector reforms, that both airline and airport are world class, and they're the preferred hub for the region.
All right. And what would be your parting shot as we wrap up, especially to Kenyans out there who have continued seeing the airline still struggling? Are we looking to soon fly out of this loss-making and fly into profitable territory?
Yeah, first, my parting shot would be, first of all, to thank. It's very important for me to thank a few people. One, to thank the customers and Kenyans in general for the faith that they've had in the airline and the support they have given us over the period of time, particularly this period when we have been down, received a tremendous amount of support from everybody. Secondly is to thank our employees. They have had tenacity, resilience over this period of time. They have been patient, and they're working extremely hard under very, very difficult circumstances to try and fly out of this turbulence. And thirdly, to thank our partners, primarily the government of Kenya, for their support, both morally and even financially. To thank our other suppliers for being patient as well, and for agreeing to have the discussions around restructuring, you know, what we owe them, and you know, to tell Kenyans and Africans, and actually our customers in general, that we are doing our very best under these circumstances to become more efficient, to reduce our position of losses, and to fly out of turbulence.
Okay. And we hope to see salaries back to normal?
Yes, that is important also. We would, once we have sufficient cash, it is not a good thing for people to be on reduced pay. Because they have commitments elsewhere. So as soon as we are able to, we will, of course, return the pay to normal.
You took a pay cut as well?
Yes, everybody took a pay cut, and mine is not special to anybody else's. Everybody has taken sacrifices in this company, and all I did was to maybe be at the front line and assure staff that everybody is taking pain. And we've all made big sacrifices just to see that this airline remains afloat and also flies out of the turbulence that we're currently in.
Thank you, sir. We wish you better days ahead.
Thank you, Abi.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Trading Bell. A lot lined up for the airline when it comes to expansion and post-COVID. How do they look to recover and fly back to profitability? Well, all this is but a question of time. My name is Agina. Thank you so much for tuning in for this edition of the Trading Bell. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.